from the coma, I think is what's doing it.
Yeah. Okay. I hit record, so we'll put this up as a video version.
All right, here we go. How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the Science of Fantasy Football. Why the Science of Fantasy Football? You get a meteorologist and a biologist together. They're going to use the scientific method that's guaranteed to make you a better fantasy football player. How can I give a guarantee in something as chaotic as fantasy football? Well, using the scientific method just means we're going to use statistics in a smarter way. And that is what's going to help you win in a statistic driven game like fantasy football. Joining me as he does each and every week, he is the fantasy professor. He's a real professor. It's John Bush. John, welcome back.
Hey, Dennis, I'm glad you're surviving in the Tennessee hills with the hillbillies. The bears are restless. I hope you're feeding them to keep them sedated there. They, start looking at you. And in the old cartoons, you'd always have the thing where the one would character would visualize the other as a turkey dinner or something, it. And I wonder what the bears see, Dennis, when they see you up there on the hillbilly deck there. They see some drumsticks, a jar of honey. What are they visualizing? Like, this human over here could be good and snackable. And I don't think that's a real word. But I think the bears would understand the word snackable. And so anyway, I'm glad you're we're able to try to do a show tonight. It feels like tonight with all these crazy injuries in the NFL.
It has been a crazy week or two of injuries to start the season. And we were talking about this before we started the show. We're not
Yep.
really sure if there are more injuries or not, but it feels like more. But I feel like I've said that for each of the last 15 seasons.
Yeah, 2015 was a real bad year for RBs. I've charted that data. If you want to dig up my updated video lessons from back in May, June, whenever it was, I track the trends, just the positional trends, ADPs, the fantasy points per game. I like to track that every year just to kind of see where things are. But that was the year that my hypothesis, I haven't tested it, was zero RB really became a thing. In other words, everybody that kind of went zero RB were rewarded. I believe the significant RBs that survived in 2015, I guess that's almost 9 years ago, were like third, fourth, fifth round, and that was so unusual, Dennis, to see that. It's just this year, it seems like the WRs are also taking a hit. So it may be we have the usual RB, but the abnormal is the WRs and maybe some of the tight ends. I'm going to track that. And so I wonder what would be the strategy that experts will say after the season that they did. In other words, they'll look to see where they need to land. Like, this year I did the, fifth round, whatever they're going to call it. I don't know what zero, whatever. I don't know, zero studs. You just don't pick anybody in the first 5 rounds and then start getting serious. I don't know. Whatever it will be, there will be next year, Dennis. Let's be on I'm sure us and Fantasy Receipts will be watching from the sidelines. But zero stud. That's what I think is the strategy we're gonna see. You should have done. Everybody should have known to do that. Obviously, I'm
Oh,
joking, Dennis, but
yeah, no, and that's the only way to do it is to joke about this because if you ain't laughing, you're crying. But
yeah.
this comes back to my number one thesis, though, in fantasy football, in that you can't control injuries, you can't predict injuries, but a good roster design, a good roster
Yeah.
build will get you through the tough times with injuries. Now, this
Like a
year,
zero RB?
well, it's just a better than zero RB. How
That's
about
it.
that?
Better
Where
than
where
zero.
you where you have a ton of them because you just never know. But this season, Professor, we've lost Puka, Nakua, we've lost Cooper Cup, we've lost AJ Brown. Those injuries at the WR position, when they come with guys that were so early in the draft, because that is part of the better than zero strategy is you line up 3 or 4 of these really good wide receivers to go with one maybe or two maybe really good running backs and then a ton of other running backs. But again, this week we've lost more running backs again. Joe Mixon is likely to miss a game. Isaiah Pacheco will be on the shelf for maybe as many as 8 weeks with a broken leg. I mean, these are injuries that are
And
just going.
CMC has been
Oh,
out. Yeah.
CMC has been out, and that was,
Think
that
about it.
turns
That
out.
took everybody who got the first pick,
Oh,
out. I only, just by chance, Dennis, I didn't have a lot of shares because I just, randomly of the 41 uh, redrafts, I just didn't get the number one. So I was able to get Brees Hall or maybe CD Lamb. I was just by chance. So fortune favored me. People, oh, I'm bad luck. I'm just saying, folks, be glad you didn't get the first pick this year. How about that? Flip the script a little bit and get your mind right and just say, I'm lucky. Actually, best ball, it chewed me up more than with my 30 best ball teams. But anyway, so I just, I'm kind of feeling like Dr. Feel Good, right? Johnny Fever, right? I was watching that WKRP. That's an old school stuff here. But anyway, maybe I sent some good vibes to people to think about this in a better way. You didn't get the first pick, so most likely you had a shot at CD Lamb or Brees Hall, somebody that's still with us this week. So it could have been worse, Dennis. You could have got all your redrafts number one, and especially me. Can you imagine
oh,
41? You know,
oh.
yeah, and I would have grabbed CMC as number one. I'm curious
It,
what's going to happen next year as well.
yeah, and this was an injury that was really happened long before week 1, and it was well hid
It
by the San
was.
Francisco 49ers, and that is going to tick off a lot of people as well. But it's amazing, Professor, with all of the reporting we have on football
They missed it.
24/7 every day of the year, and they missed it so
They missed it.
badly. It just is crazy that they missed it so badly, but it happens. But I did a little study over the last 3 years because I looked at my diary. I have as many championships from the last 4 picks.
Uh-oh. I think we lost Dennis again. Well, I think he's going to say he lost. Uh, he did well picking later, probably on the turn or whatnot, and so that's probably makes sense here. We uh, we are trying to do this show from, like I said, the out hills of Tennessee. So we will see if Dennis comes back here. Uh, I don't know if he even knows he's off here. I'm going to chat him up here uh, and see what's going on here. Hopefully, we'll have time to do the Thursday game. Well, he's gone. No here. Okay, so he knows he's in trouble there. So anyway, I think this was going to comment on that, which is interesting. I'm going to track the WRs a lot this year just to pay attention. I don't know. It seems it's getting a lot of attention cause these are the uh, more highly drafted players are seemingly going down. So that's always an issue here. And so hopefully people can bounce back. But it could have been worse. You could have got the #1 pick, and you would have been completely tricked by all that. Okay, I'm going to pause it here, guys, and pause it.
Professor. All right.
Okay, I
We're back.
paused the recording. I actually, for our video friends, I actually kept going on a little bit, circling back to the be glad you didn't have the first pick. That was about once I kind of recovered that you were gone. But and I
Very good.
guessed your data says that previously you won championships near the turn. Is that
Correct.
what? Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, and
Correct.
that makes sense from drafting, and we hope theoretically. You always wonder about the success rate, and I do need to circle back around, folks. I just have too many projects and not enough interns working. It's just me, Dennis, the data cat, the husky dog, my French bulldog, and that's it. We're lifting the heavy burdens here, trying to do all this for you guys. But I need some interns, and maybe down the road we'll have that, Dennis.
Yeah, and I know you were a little concerned there, Professor, because all of a sudden I was gone, and no, the Bears did not drag me away here
I
in the
was
mountains of
worried.
Tennessee. So that is good news. Now, what the point I was about to make when we were so rudely interrupted by probably the squirrel gnawing through the Wi-Fi cable, who knows?
Yeah,
Or the squirrel was using up too much Wi-Fi with his
that's right.
tablet. Or maybe the Bears were. Maybe the
Yeah.
Bears were watching a replay of the
Of
80
the Bears.
of the 85 Bears. I don't know. But anyway, uh, my diary, my fantasy football diary tells me that I've won as many championships from the first four and the last four draft spots. So if you have a sound drafting strategy, yes, the first pick gives you an advantage some years. Early picks give you an advantage. We know that. But you can overcome any obstacle in fantasy football with good strategy. And this year, you got saved if you didn't take CMC
Yep.
as the most logical first round pick. In best ball, one of the big best ball tournaments, I saw a thing today that said 7% of the teams that were the #1 pick in the draft
Yep.
are in contention to cash right now versus 18% of the whole populations. So it definitely shows that that is going to hamper you.
Yeah.
And part of it, Professor, is because some of those same teams ended up getting Deebo Samuel. They ended up getting Isaiah Pacheco. You know, they're going to be in for a long season because they are going to end up losing more than one guy. I saw one sort of projected just based on the consensus ADP that you could have ended up having 3 of your first 5 players right now out for an
Yep.
extended length of time. That's
Yep.
just crazy.
And it hits me that it escapes. I'm sitting here thinking about the Bears on the tablet and watching the Bear video from '85. That was such a shock to my system as a Saints fan. But anyway, my thoughts are gone because that just wiped me out, Dennis. I'm still laughing about that. And the data squirrels watching. But anyway, I agree with you that your strategy, you hope. I'm wondering. Oh, no, my thought. The fab that I spent last night wasn't
Ooh,
great. In
nope.
fact, I had a laundry list of potential. So I was drafting not like, oh, this is a sure thing, let me draft them. I felt like, well, if this injury does this, then that. In other words, it was very convoluted. And the more convoluted my logic gets, my diary says don't jump in. I remember Puka last year, and it was clear. There was no So I invested 40 to 50% of my fab. And at that point, I said, the worst I'll get is a WR2. Obviously, I got better. But I haven't seen this year's Puka. I may have missed it with Mason in Frisco. I may have just completely, I don't think he was really even available because, our benches are so deep. Everybody was grabbing everybody. Uh, but the Puka moment, folks, it depends, may have already missed us. People were, and I think Whittington at the Rams, I know there's a lot of talk, and he did well the second quarter, got a lot of the snaps, and my snap data showed he stepped up and whatnot. I mean, with Puka and Cup bad, I see. I wondered if some of that was trying to recreate the Puka magic last year. Same team, kind of an unheralded wide receiver. Let me go get him. And that's human nature. That's, that's what's kept our ancestors surviving against the saber-toothed cats is, maybe I shouldn't go down that trail. My my cave colleague Ugg got eaten last night by the saber-tooth walking down that trail. I'm going to go down this trail to go get the mastodon steaks. So I'm just saying that I'm wondering if some of that, of course, again, it may turn out that, I missed it, but I did try for him in a few. I just didn't invest a lot of money. Out of 1,000 dentists, the most I spent, and I don't even know if I got it, was $60. I mean, versus Puka, we were talking 400 or 500. So I have not personally seen the Puka so far. It's the elusive Puka. I have not seen it on the Serengeti Plains yet. I'm hoping that, he's out there somewhere.
And he probably isn't, because that's usually the exception rather than the rule. Jordan Mason was a guy that you had to pick up before the season started. As
Yeah.
soon as Elijah Mitchell went down, you needed to pick up Jordan Mason. As soon as Clyde Edwards-Helaire went on the injury list, you had to grab Carson Steele if you own Pacheco. If you wanted the
not
backup,
in Dennis, not in a lot of leagues that you and I were in, because I have him in 24, and I got him a couple more leagues last night. I was forging Horton. You told me, okay?
Yeah,
and I was forging and hoarding on Carson Steele. Whether he turns out to be anything or not, I got a lot of shares.
Yeah, and he might not turn out to be anything. Okay, that's the thing. He might be a 1-week wonder where he gets you points this week, and then maybe Kareem Hunt actually looks okay in practice and can learn the offense again.
Boy, there's a lot of people dumping on Kareem Hunt with his stats last year. He was
awful.
Touchdown dependent, but he was the slowest. I mean, it was sound like a sloth out there. If you would have listened, Dennis, to the radio and all the Twitter and everything, it sounded like it was a giant land sloth, Kareem Hunt, lumbering around, and just, wheezing his way into the end zone. I mean, come on. Kareem Hunt being in the NFL at his age is still so much better than the average folks off the street. Come on, folks. Kareem Hunt's good.
He's a good ball player.
Yeah, and he's a good ball player.
And I don't really care if he's good or not. If he's getting the volume, if he beats out Carson Steele and he gets the volume with Kansas City. Look at Kyren Williams right now with Puka and Kupp hurt, and with that offense sputtering because the offensive line is a mess. He's averaging less than 3 yards a carry, and he's still getting you double-digit points in fantasy football each and every week on a lousy offense. Volume will overcome a lot. Now, that doesn't mean that Kyren Williams right now, what he's paying off, was worth a mid to late second round pick. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the player right now, if you got him at whatever price. Let's say somebody was dumb enough to drop him and you pick him up on waivers here because he's not doing anything for these, they're always he's 2.5 yards a carry. Who cares? He's averaging 12 fantasy points a week. No, that's not going to win you a week, but it's going to keep you in the hunt each and every week in your matchup. If you're over 12 points, you didn't hurt your fantasy team. If you're under 5 points, you're killing your fantasy team. If you get volume, you're going to get double digit points more weeks than not. And that's why Kareem Hunt is an attractive possible pickup this week, because you grab him, you stash him, and you see if Carson Steele can do anything. The kid's a rookie. He fumbled already this year when he was in a big opportunity. It didn't cost him a game, obviously, so he got more chances. If he gives up a couple of, makes a couple of bad decisions in pass protection and gets Mahomes hit hard, if he makes another fumble or two trying to do too much, he's gonna be on the bench. But for this week, it's worth the shot. Cam Akers is worth the shot down in Houston. That's a guy that I didn't think much of last year in Los Angeles. That's why I was all on Kyren Williams. Didn't think much when he went up to Minnesota. That's why I was holding out hope that Ty Chandler would be something. Yep. But Cam Akers, if he gets touches on a very good, maybe great Houston offense, he's worth picking up. Deontay Foreman got some volume. He's worth a grab because they don't seem to be in love with Jerome Ford. This is how you have to play the running back position in fantasy football, is you always need to be looking at who's going to get the volume and patch and fill until your studs come back.
And Dennis, make sure folks keep that diary, update about these kind of things. And for me, if Carson Steele doesn't get me anything but 1 week, all I can ask for with your zero RB, your better than zero draft strategy is just have the opportunity to make this kind of thing happen, to where all of a sudden Steele is something. At least that's the best I can hope for, Dennis. And I've got, the Ray Davis, the Berkey Irwin, the Isaac Guerrero in San Francisco, just waiting in the weeds, and Vidal in the Chargers, right? Or Vidal, I don't know. But that is what I did in best ball, and I've got a lot of shares of those as well. Estime had a lot of shares, but he went on IR, and since he did not achieve anything early, I took some risks because I was looking for other situations and probably cut about half my volume and thinking, I can circle back, and if Javonte doesn't work out, I can circle back and have a shot to get him a week or two before he comes off IR and take that dollar holler bid and grab him back. So took a gamble, but that kind of thing, Dennis. I'm ready for some of these scenarios that I think your drafting strategy allows us to be. It's like we're here. All of a sudden, it's like, where did this come from? Well, we're here. We're assuming this opportunity exists, and I think the waiver runs, people were struggling. It's just when you think about something like what was going on with the waiver runs, I don't think people were deep thinking, Dennis. They were reactive, like the Whittington. Was he the best pick in your waiver? I mean, I understand there's a scenario where that works, but I don't know if he was the best choice, that kind of thing. But you move yourself to being in the best position. If the injuries are going to come, it's just if they come to your team or not, that you can take advantage of that. And I really love your better than zero strategy. Can I say genius? Me and the squirrel think it's genius. So I'm
Well,
going to give you a prop I'm fully invested in this concept. I really didn't get it going as much last year. I kind of was late to the party, but this year I've tried it, and so far I feel like I'm more prepared for chaos than I've ever been. And maybe it's just, I'm tricking myself. You never know.
Well, that is the whole point of this is try not to fool yourself that you understand talent and can diagnose who is the best player, and just have a lot of guys that are in that next man up scenario as your roster fillers. You hope that these guys never come off the bench, but we know injuries happen. We know injuries tend to happen a little harder at the running back position. Yes, we've lost a lot of wide receivers this year, but the better than zero would still be able to patch and fill around those wide receivers, because there tend to be more misses when it comes to the starting wide receivers, meaning the second best wide receiver on a lot of teams is not as well known as who the best running back is
Like
on a given team.
Alex Pierce at Indianapolis is an example. He's been in Shaheed over Olave
Yes.
and Pierce over Pittman early in the season. If you missed on those, the top two, but you grab the second guy in your patch and field concept, then you're probably doing okay until, maybe these top guys kind of recycle back and get going again.
Yeah, and Alec Pierce was a guy that I was wrong about because I didn't even have many shares of him in best ball because I thought he was just a good functional wide receiver who was good at blocking on the edge and was good at running some routes, but not great. And he has developed a good rapport with Anthony Richardson because he's been a guy to go deep and catch the occasional deep ball and catch the occasional first down play for you. You're gonna miss on players. Don't be shy to say, "Hey, missed on that guy. Let's go on." Because that's the attitude you have to have with any forecast situation. You are not going to be perfect. And speaking of not being perfect, we have two very imperfect teams on Thursday night football this year. The New England Patriots going to play the Jets. And I got to think that Jets fans get worried anytime Aaron Rodgers is playing on a primetime game.
Yep. So for the video, folks, I just put in, this is my weekly uncertainty and power rankings, because I like to set the table, folks, my top-down approach. I think Dennis carries the flag for his better than zero. I carry the flag for top-down approach of the data, the metrics, and that's driving me to make decisions, especially flexes and maybe some late waivers. And just, you can't stay static, Dennis. You start setting your lineups. Yes, I started setting my lineups Monday night while the games are
Yep.
going, right? And we
Yep.
got two this week, by the way. And I already grabbed my defenses by Monday night. I've already initially. And then last night, I was just shuffling some pieces around and thinking about things. But anyway, my top down approach, and I probably should, I've hinted this, but I've never done an article and, put this on my list to do next year to actually outline that team level, league level, team level, position level, player level, that stepping stones from top to bottom, I think is better than if you start the other way, bottom to top. But in fantasy football, not necessarily in science, Dennis. In science, we actually have to do both. And sometimes we don't even know which way to do. If you're studying an ecosystem, you definitely want to understand top down. But if you're studying like, wolves in Yellowstone, then you definitely need to be at the individual level. So you track the wolves and whatnot. But you need to understand the ecosystem, the environment, the rabbit population, etc. So you've got to do both. And that's my training. But I found myself in fantasy doing top down. With that said, long, Dr. Bush gets going. I'm a paid lecturer, folks. So Dennis thinks he can talk. I can talk all day. So anyway, and I try not to step on Dennis's toes. I'm still learning this radio podcast thing. But anyway, I have what I call my uncertainty levels, and I rate each team by the players I rank each week into three buckets: high uncertain, average, and low. Uncertainty level means kind of floor to ceiling. Doesn't mean that they're bad or good. It just means I see a range of outcomes, and that, I mean, with weather forecasting, Dennis is well aware of that situation. They don't pinpoint to the foot where the hurricane comes in. Okay, folks, they'll give you these models. Same thing here. I'm trying to model the idea of what players are a little bit more uncertain as far as where their rankings are. In other words, if you look at the ranking and one's ranked high uncertain at 50 out of 100, another one's low, I'm more confident I'm going to get closer to 50 with the low than I am with the high. The high could be 75 or 80, or it could be 10 or 20. And so I need to understand that, what I'm doing in setting flexes and waivers and things. But anyway, this week, so I count the number of players in each bucket and get a ratio of high to low. And I sorted here, Dennis. You can see in green are the safer, quote, safer teams this week, not the season, this week. And then the more riskier players, or I should say the more uncertain players. So there's New England, third from the bottom. There's a lot of uncertainty. And I think so far every week they've done well, but every week there's a lot of uncertainty about exactly who's doing what and where, other than Ramondre Stevenson, who's been kind of, for some people, surprised. Not for Dennis and I. We were drafting him hand over fist. But a lot of the Hunter Henry's kind of coming down from a little bit more risky or high to maybe average now. And I wouldn't have seen that. And I actually got him in a couple leagues last night, Dennis. That was good. But people were asleep on him. And but the Jets are in the mid tier, a little bit towards the mid tier. So they're a little bit less uncertain this year. And then I also do my power rankings, where I do some secret sauce and rank each team relative to their DAPS, relative to my ranking, relative to uncertainty. Put it all together, stir it in a gumbo. Okay, we hope it tastes good, right? And tell that squirrel, if he start bothering you, then just look at him and just say, "Squirrel gumbo." And if that squirrel's halfway awake, he'll leave you alone. He doesn't want to be squirrel gumbo. And or bear steaks there.
Ooh.
See, you flip the script, Dennis. You become the predator, right? See, that's how you beat the saber-toothed cat. Your ancestors became the predator against the saber-tooth and versus the other way around. But anyway, this week, power rankings, Jets are slap dab in the middle, and New England fourth from the bottom. So the metrics are pointing to the Jets having a more forecastable outcome. I don't even know. We'll see when I do. Let's see who's, and the Jets, surprisingly or not, are favored. Dennis, this is my metrics. Game one, favored Jets 26, New England 13. 6.5 points, 39. That was yesterday. I haven't checked the latest lines. I'm sure you have. But that seems like the Jets are predicted by Vegas to spank the New England pretty good. New England's going to struggle. After the Ramondre touchdown that he'll get us, Dennis, it looks like Vegas doesn't believe anybody else is going to get a touchdown. Maybe Henry catches a bunch, but it looks lean on paper. DAPS, Vegas gets pretty much nice passing and a little bit rough, but not really, running backs and tight ends. So there's nothing dramatic scares me, other than I'm not sure I'm using the Jets kicker. You definitely, both defenses are in play. And Dennis and I know we took a lot of New England. Just Rodgers, he can turn over the Jets have not gelled yet. Okay, in my opinion, we're still, and a lot of teams haven't been the same way, Dennis. We're still in that early rust, and there's still players like Hopkins, Tennessee, talking about we want to get him going again. Well, what that means is they wanted him to be ready as soon as they stuck him out there, and he wasn't. Mike Williams, we guys were all over him. We're hoping he's ascending. The good news, Dennis, the snaps are
Oh,
trending good
yes.
for Mike. So I'm hoping by this game or the next one or two that we're going to start collecting on some of those spike weeks we needed for our best ball. New England, on the other hand, looks like it's extra tough on passing, but surprise, look at their easy for
Ooh,
Ramadre right there.
love that.
And the kickers and defense. So it looks like rushing is what New England needs to do. So my home and away splits here, Dennis. Jets are favorite. They are at home. They like to pass more. That's what the New England defense gives, at least did last year. I'm still on using last year, folks, because hadn't had enough data yet to do this year. It was 14% higher passing. With the Jets, New England being away, they rush more, Dennis, pass about the same. So look at that, 16% more rushing away than at home. And guess what the DAPs are saying? Go rushing. So I think if New England wins, they're going to get their rushing gets them out there, and they're able to get lucky with Henry and maybe Polk or some of these other guys, and they keep it, and then the defense steps up more than we think right there. So that's kind of my overview. I'm setting the table for Dennis to swoop in as the data hawk and tell us what all this means from his perspective.
Yeah, this is going to be a messy game. It's going to be a low scoring game. That's the only thing that I'm really confident about. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're below that 39 number. In fact, this actually opened at 42 and a half, came down to 39 when you made this graphic. It's down to 38 and a half.
Yep,
So the
it's
betting
dropping.
public is also, yeah, they're on this deal that it's going to be on the under. But now at 38 and a half, here's the curious thing, Professor. Now
Yeah.
68% of the money are on the over. So
So
I'm not
Vegas
buying
found
that.
that sweet spot, right, to try to
Yes, and
balance.
that's yeah, and that's exactly what Vegas wants to do. They want to balance the action, and it was unbalanced, so they're bringing it back, and now it's unbalanced the other way. I wouldn't be surprised to see the line go back to 39 by the time it closes. Jets 6 point favorite. I think that that's a fair number. I'm not so sure I feel confident enough in the Jets offense though. I to bet that number. But I would probably sit this game out from a betting standpoint, but on a prop standpoint, Ramondre Stevenson, you got to look at him
Is he
as a
50,
possibility
50
uh,
points?
right now
50?
on his prop bet for this game was when I looked at the line the
Mhm.
first time, it really wasn't. I didn't really understand it, Professor. I'll be honest with you. I was looking at
Okay.
him going, man, that looks to be an interesting number. But the more I look at the data, the more I'm kind of thinking, okay, maybe, they know what they're talking about here. Usually Vegas does.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that we know. But when it comes to these lines, there's sometimes very fluid and it's kind of hard to predict. But when I look at this line now, Drafters has it at 64 and a half. I'd love the over in that. That seems to be,
That's
really.
I was thinking 50. Look, when I say a number, that's because I tend to be very conservative with this, Dennis. So I guess that's my magic got to bet it at 50, at 64. But I'm conservative. You're a little bit more aggressive because you've had more years experience. This is my first year to even get into these waters.
Yeah, and when I say it looks kind of good to me, I'm kind of saying I think the defensive matchup is good. Okay. And if I look at the logs, he had opened the season with 120, followed up against a decent Seattle defense with 81. So something in the 60s seems reasonable to me. I originally, when I looked at that, I was thinking, okay, this line's going to be around 72,
Yeah.
73. I don't want to touch it. At 64 and a half, I might be willing
I
to
got him
bet
at a
that line.
mid-level RB2 level this week, average uncertainty. So there's nothing there that leads me away from that or to that. It's just there. Brissett, I
Ugh,
don't have him ranked high at all.
no.
And the WRs, Hunter Henry. It looks to me the passing goes through Hunter Henry,
Yes.
the way and I've got him as a tight end 2 type, just on kind of dead center there. So I wouldn't look, folks. If you've got Njoku or whoever, and we're all, Ferguson, if he plays or doesn't play, I mean Ingram. I mean, hey, Hunter Henry's as good as any. He showed he can, in the right situation, he can be a target magnet in this. So sometimes when I'm looking at my rankings, when I've seen something like that before, it at least gets my attention. It's like, okay, under this scenario, he can do a lot. It's like Kelsey, for instance, everybody's old. Kelsey's old and tired. Dennis, I know you've been doing important vacation things, but that drum beat's out there. What they're missing is, under the right circumstances, Kelsey is going to do it. It's just, I don't think those circumstances have arrived, and Kansas City hasn't been in those situations yet. So I think, if anything, if I had it to do over, I would probably draft a little less than Kelsey. But when I drafted Mahomes and Kelsey, I still like to pair that up, and it wouldn't surprise me come playoff time for us that you're rewarded. And so I'm hoping maybe that's just me being around a Kansas City homer guy like you. But anyway, getting back to Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry has shown something that a lot of the other tight ends haven't shown us, Dennis. He can catch, and be in a tight end premium league, you can cha-ching on him, and he's worth as your tight end 2. He's maybe the best tight end 2 on paper right now for that. So the New England does have that. Stevenson's going to rush. That's what I see, and I think Vegas sees that as well. The Jets, I do love the defense. Uh, Rodgers, I got him at 28. That's, boy, in
Yeah.
Superflex, okay, playing, but boy, he's not my QB1 this week. Love Brees Hall. They're going to try to, he'll be the hammer, and Garrett Wilson, but notice high uncertainty. I don't know what we're going to get. I could see Garrett getting touchdowns as a range of outcome, or being skunked. That's how crazy this is. I'm hoping Mike Williams shows a little more life for us this week. And Lazard, folks, he's going to be the Tyler Lockett wannabe. He'll get you another spike week. I don't know, couple weeks. I don't know when, but it won't be when you use him. He'll be on your bench. Sorry. He's more of a best ball guy. Sorry. Tyler Conklin, he's getting a lot of snap attention, a lot of usage, but just hadn't come through yet. So he's another one of these streamer types that is as good as a lot out there, Dennis, as well this week. So, and Braylon Allen clearly looks like, he's who you want as your handcuff guy, and he has value even outside. It's just picking the week he's going to deliver for you on that. But boy, does he look, especially if he goes to another team. I don't know if Jets will. Boy, he needs to be somewhere else, and he would be next year. He'd be drafted high if he continues having these spiky games.
Yeah, and I think you will have some spiky games in some games where the Jets lead from start to finish and put the game away early. I'm not
Right.
so sure that this is the week they do that. I
No.
think this is just a slugfest, low scoring game. New England's defense has been good, but here's on the passing side for New England. In the two games
They've been a little
total,
loose on passing last year.
Jacoby Brissett has Jacoby Brissett has 270 yards passing, not per game, folks.
Oh,
270 total over
so
two games.
135.
Hunter Henry,
Yeah.
correct. Hunter Henry almost has half of those yards himself. So don't play any of the New England wide receivers until we start to see more passing volume. Hunter Henry is your tight end sort of plug and play. If you were streaming tight ends, he'd probably be a good play for more than just this week, because he is the targeted choice in a very conservative game plan. And as far as the Jets go, I wasn't on Garrett Wilson because I just wasn't sure how much would be left in the tank for Aaron Rodgers. Garrett Wilson's a fabulous player, but he's just lacks that upside I want to see in a first round draft pick. Breece Hall is Breece Hall, and Breece Hall, I had a couple of drafts, Professor, in best ball where I took Breece Hall #1 over CMC, just to switch things up, because I was getting an abnormal number of first round
you were
picks.
just trying to
And I
balance the
wanted
books,
to, I
kind of like
wanted to,
Vegas. You were trying to balance the books.
yep,
Yep.
forced a little diversification, and it didn't hurt me, but I felt pretty confident that CMC, after CMC, Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson were like 2 and 2B for me. And I liked Breece Hall a little bit more because I thought he would get the volume. And that was all she wrote. So in this game, I think the Jets line at -6.5 is accurate. I would give those points if I had to in a contest, probably not putting your money on it or the Bears' money on it
or the
this week.
Money. That's right.
And I do think this could be an even lower scoring game, but boy, 39 is tough.
That's weak. Folks, anything below my metrics say anything below 42 is weak sauce for big shootout potential. It can happen. It's hard to imagine. You'd have to be very optimistic, Dennis, to think this is becomes a big shootout.
No, but the only two guys I want in my fantasy lineups for sure this week, Ramondre Stevenson and Breece Hall.
Yep.
So head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. Check out all of the professor's snap data, his secret sauce on his metrics. Oh my goodness. When you look at the uncertainty metrics of the professor, it really does help with those hard, tough decisions that you have to make each and every week in fantasy football. And come back here Saturday. Hey, I'll be back in the home data cave on Saturday morning for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks. Well, anyway, that's great, Dennis. That was good. So when you show Rusty here, and by the way, we are now officially in the after show for about 5 minutes here. I know Dennis has probably got fish to fry other than me, but Dennis, are you saying that your game used to be a lot sharper and now you feel like as an older gentleman, let's say a seasoned gentleman, right? We're in their 60s now. We can say we're seasoned. Is this kind of us? We're kind of rusty old bolts and nuggets here that, Is that just kind of you, Dennis? There's a lot of holes in your soul, all the stuff that you've gone through, and there's not much left of Dennis. Here he is. He's just alone, just rusting on the cable here. And if he didn't pick his wonderful long suffering wife puts up with him. There
Oh.
he is. And his long suffering pets. There's Dennis just hanging out, rusting on the cable. And we said, Dennis used to be something else, and look at him now. He's that 10-year-old maiden still trying to break his maiden.
This
And
might have explained why the bear walked right by me
well, Dennis, the
yesterday.
Rorschach test, you look at something and the psychiatrist, and when you pick this image, and I wonder, Dennis, are you asking for some help from Dr. Bush here? This is
Maybe
how you see yourself. This is me rusting away in life. There's my
maybe
teams.
maybe I'm just, when the bear looked at me, he says, "That's tough old meat. I don't want to.
Yeah, I
I don't
don't
want to
need to.
gnaw on that.
Yeah, I don't
I
want to
want
break my teeth on that
I,
old hide.
I want beef jerky. I'll go into town.
Yeah,
All the tourist traps,
yeah.
man. That
So
that
for
might explain a lot."
Yeah, so for the after show, just want to remind you folks the snap count, and I hadn't had time to do the data, Dennis, but there were a lot, that from first to second week, just folks, there are things happening that I'm not sure I know yet, but there are data that can lead you to some situations. I would go through the snap, not just look at it. And I've tried to set up the data, Dennis, when I do that, when I do the snap count, and I don't know if I let's see if I can pull up the snap figure. No, I done hit them somewhere. Uh, but in the snap count, the I just go through a little at a time, look at one or two teams, take a cup of coffee, walk away, come back. If you try to do all 32 teams
Oh,
all the way through, any kind of metrics, folks, there, I'm telling you, you will start making mistakes towards the end. And just here's a little secret for the after the show, folks. When I set my lineups during the week, I'll start Monday, I'll flip Tuesday. The whole week I'm flipping with the line. I will deliberately start at my 41st team going backward, and then tomorrow I'll
yep.
start first team going forward. I feel like that if I did do it that way, I'm probably the middle ones, and then sometimes I'll start in the middle and work out. I'm just trying to get that. But we get tired. There is data out there, Dennis, that we get tired with our decision making. I've read some papers on when people make decisions before meals, even. I know it seems logical,
Yep.
but they've done judges and setting, parole sentences, and they've measured their judgments. And it turns out if you're going up to parole board, you want to hit them after lunch where their glucose levels are nice and high. You don't want them where they're hangry in the morning. They'll sentence you to more time. So the data suggest that if you cranky, if you just had you're crabby at your wife, or your pet chewed your favorite couch, or what, that's not the time to make serious fantasy football decisions. Get you some snacks, get yourself some pleasant tea or coffee, get that caffeine rolling, but kind of, get that zen going, folks, but not in the middle of an angry bar and everybody's, swinging from the chandeliers and you're 2 6 packs under trying to do trades in your dynasty team. Come on, folks. Use
with with
common
a
sense.
with a
And
house full of grandkids screaming
yes,
around, that
yep.
has not been the optimal time to do waivers or set lineups. So I've been doing it right when I go to bed and right when I get up in the morning.
But
Uh,
Dennis, there's a lot of data that suggests that we as humans are imperfect. And they've even here, I'll tell you one test is really great. I'm not like folks, I'm a biologist, not a psychologist, but they had one where they did a pay as you go coffee cup, put 25
Oh
cents in.
yeah.
Well, Dennis, they did a picture over that cup of like a flower. And then they did a picture of a pair of eyes looking down at the cup. Guess which one got more money? The
Oh, it's got to be
eyes.
the eyes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we are influenced. They talk about painting the serial killer jail cell pink. There's something to that. There's some colors and our moods. And folks, you just don't want to be out of sorts setting your life because you'll be mad at yourself because you're going to make mistakes and then you'll get angry. And next week you're mad about last week and blank, blank, blank. And then you end up calling in and Fantasy Receipts is tracking your crazy predictions because you're angry. And then all of a sudden you're exposed as you're really not the expert you thought you were on Twitter. And it just goes downhill, Dennis. You know, the data squirrel's got a hold of your acorns and they're not letting go and they're chewing them off. And you just don't want to be in that situation. So, this is just a little professor tip of how you deal with your weekly activities. Come on, folks, you can do better than you're doing. Let's all get through it. It's week 3. Let's celebrate this game and we're going to do a great job. Come on, let's do it. The professor trusts you to be a better person this week as far as fantasy than you were last week.
I love that
Wasn't that
inspirational
inspirational,
message.
Dennis? Wasn't
That
that?
was inspirational.
Well, I had to give some value added to her after the show. For
Very
the one
good.
or two people that actually puts up with us here. Most of
There you
our
go.
listeners are like this, Dennis. They're holes in their soul, and the wind blows through, and there's nothing left of them. And they're like, "Well, I kind of blew into this crazy science of fantasy. These two characters here, and they're helping me lose my leagues, and we're all sad together." Here Dennis is on the line, just rusting away, just like his team. You like that, don't you?
Terrible.
Okay, I'm
Terrible.
gonna end our recording. Come back
All
for
right,
after the
Professor.
show.